Now also going to be talking about why election campaigning is taking something of a backseat today as both main party leaders head to Portsmouth to mark the 80th anniversary of the D-Day landings. We'll be talking about that as well. This is Talk. Welcome to the home of common sense. Thank you so much for joining me. As I say, so much to talk about. A lot of the focus in the election really is on the leaders' debate last night, which a lot of people are being very critical about how scrappy it was. Well, you can criticise the two-party leaders for how scrappy it was, but not, I think, Julia Etchingham of ITV, who yet again did a fine job, a good headmistressy style. I was very much an approval of keeping those men in check. There was a lot of talking over each other. She gave them a good telling off at one point to a round of applause from the audience. I have to say, I expected it to be an absolute snooze-a-thon. Got myself a glass of wine, settled in, thought, here we go. And actually, within a few minutes, thought, oh, they're going to be a bit livelier, because bearing in mind, these aren't the most exciting orators in the world, are they? I mean, let's be honest, it wasn't expected to be a big fiery debate, but actually we did get a bit of fire and brimstone. Whether we learned anything new or not is another matter, but I want to hear from you. Who do you think won? An immediate sort of snap poll suggested that 51% of people thought that Rishi Sunak won against 59, doing my maths there, 49% for Keir Starmer. I'm surprised we didn't have a good 30% for none of the above. But, I mean, that's within the margin of error, but is that good news for Sunak, given that he's so far behind in the polls? Keir Starmer's the one with something to lose, not Sunak at this point. But I want to know, who did you think won? What do you think we learned? Tell us why you think whoever it was won. You know, just what did you make of the debate? What did you think that we got out of it? Do get in touch. Give us a call. 0344 499 1000. You can text on 87222 or get in touch on X at talkTV. Don't forget, calls are charged at the national rate. Text costs one standard network rate message. I'd love to hear from you also if you think that actually there's other stuff you wanted to have covered. They covered a very broad range of subjects. You know, immigration, the NHS, tax and spending, climate change, obviously, from a question from a woman straight out of central casting. But I just want to know what your thoughts are, what we didn't hear from the two main leaders. So give us a call, 0344 499 1000. You can send a WhatsApp to that message. Even better, you can send a voicemail to that number, and we'll put that on air. If you can't stay on the line to chat to me personally, I won't take offence. Right now, delighted to welcome Benedict Spence to the show. He's a Conservative commentator and joins us once again. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Did you watch the debate?
Sadly, yes.
Sadly, yes. Were you thinking all week, ooh, can't wait to the TV leaders debate?
I couldn't say for certain that I was, no.
Because when people get very excited about these things, I think, well, really? Think about TV leaders debates. Are they not necessarily game changers? There's a lot of talk about how, it was a game changer in 2010 when the first time they did these debates, where we had Gordon Brown, David Cameron and Nick Clegg, and everyone basically said, oh, I agree with Nick, I agree with Nick. He went storming up in the polls. He ended up losing 2 seats in the actual election. First of all, do these debates really make any difference to the campaign?
I don't think they do, really. I think that it's not a format that actually lends itself to our political sphere. I think it's far too presidential in nature, and I think then when you have the expanded ones, there's too many people crashing in. It's like an episode of Question Time. Nobody's really there to learn anything. They're just there to see their guy punch the other people verbally.
And they've basically got a list of things. Say this, say this. Make sure you get your 3 lines
I was
out.
thinking this, though. There was no sort of panache. There's never anything off the cuff. And actually, even Boris Johnson was never very good at that sort of thing in a debate format that you do see in US or even French presidential elections, because our politicians, even the good ones, the good orators, Cameron, Blair, they're just very polished. There's no actual sort of daring there. There's no attempt to be a character. As you say, it's that kind of like, you've got your talking points, you've got your little sound bites. Do not stray from those, because straying from those into the deep, dark forest of the unknown is dangerous.
He hasn't got a plan.
Toolmaker, NHS, all that sort
oh my God! We all had a drink at my father's toolmaker, which he mentioned twice. And of course, my mother was a pharmacist from Rishi Sunak. I mean, we got the same stuff. Everyone knew this was coming. Look, let's play a few. I promise you. Because I like you so much, and it's very short clips. This is the rule. Let's have a little taste of the exchange that we had over taxes. And this starts with Keir Starmer.
Taxes are now being cut. Keir Starmer would put all that progress at risk. He would put up everyone's taxes by £2,000. £2,000 in higher taxes for every working family in our country after all the hard work and sacrifice we've been through. That's not the right course of action. I don't know why you want to put up people's taxes.
Keir Starmer.
Paul, I just don't know how you feel when you hear a Prime Minister say, having heard what you're going through,
that the plan is working, it's all right. I meet so many people who are struggling with their bills, and the Prime Minister just keeps saying he lives in a different world, that
Could you,
the corner's turned and it's all
if people
right.
are struggling with their bills, why do you want to make it harder for them by saddling them with £2,000 worth of higher taxes?
As you will have noticed, that started with Sunak speaking rather than Starmer. Little trick for you there. Again, that £2,000 bills for extra. Now that's been examined by the great and the good, and of course the people who are fact checkers at the BBC, who of course the ultimate arbiters, the gods of facts apparently, who nearly always get things wrong. But look, the reality is, whoever gets in is going to put our taxes up. I mean, I'm sorry, it's a big fat lie for anyone to claim anything different. Full stop.
Yeah, I think that's why, because lots of people were saying at the time, why isn't he rebuffing this? Why isn't Starmer rebuffing this?
It took him quite a few goes before he did say it was a lie.
I was thinking, because he sat there thinking, hang on, am I? I don't want to be accused of being a liar. I might want to check in at half-time whether or not that's true, because that sounds like the sort of thing that could come back to haunt me. But no, it was desperate stuff. It's not changed anybody's, I suspect, not changed anybody's opinion on where they're going to vote. I was very appreciative of Rishi Sunak mentioning Abu Qatada, a blast of 2010 right there, a little nugget for those of us who remember the bad old days. But apart from that, honestly, it was just, we all knew Sunak is a little too keen, he's a little too public schoolboy, oh miss, look how clever I am. Yeah. And Starmer is very kind of, I got to be Director of Public Prosecutions by being very slow, very ponderous, very methodical, not by being Rumpole of the Bailey.
But genuinely, I'm honestly, I mean, again, I had very low expectations. I am of the view that Starmer was less boring than he normally is, came out a bit more punchy, and Sunak was much more lively than you normally expect him to be, because he's taken on this very sort of calm, sort of managerial, I'm the adult in the room sort of technocrat thing, but again, ain't going down very well with many voters.
It's that sort of. The difficulty with Sunak's approach is it can come off as over-enthusiasm. You do want an energetic Prime Minister because his government feels... Yeah, his government feels very sluggish, very lethargic, but he has a tendency, as we saw when he was debating Liz Truss, which, that's an impressive thing to somehow come across as less impressive than Liz Truss. He was just talking over all the time, and there were occasions where he sort of strayed into that territory. Maybe you can get away with it a bit more.
Exactly. We're not allowed to talk over.
That's the key thing, though, isn't it? No, keep going. We're not done. It was that sort of... Nobody's really sort of impressed by that. It's not the Oxford Union.
Very, very clear that the audience weren't impressed with that. That's certainly the case. Well, let's have a listen and a watch of a little exchange also on the issue of private healthcare. And this starts with Julia Etchingham asking them both about private healthcare. I thought this was incredibly telling. Watch the listen now.
If you had loved ones on a long waiting list for surgery, would you, if you felt that was the only way forward, use private healthcare? Rishi Sunak?
Yes.
Keir Starmer?
No.
Absolutely no if your loved one was on a waiting list for surgery?
No.
Thank you very much.
I don't use private health. Okay. I use the NHS.
I have to say, I thought that was absolutely astonishing. I can imagine a conversation when Starmer gets home to his little home in Islington with his wife, where she says, so anyway, there I am, dying of cancer, and you know that I could get my operation tomorrow on the private, but it's going to be in like another 6 months on the NHS. And I know NHS is in your DNA, and I work in the NHS. I mean, she's occupational health. I mean, I mean, with all due respect, she's not a heart surgeon or nurse cleaning out bedpans. But you wouldn't use. By the way, they're not wealthy like the Sunaks. Barely anyone is that wealthy, but they are very much very well-off people who've earned six-figure salaries for a very long time. They are vastly well-off compared to most people in this country. And you wouldn't use your money to pay for my operation. I'm thinking that's a rather frosty breakfast the next morning.
Well, it's going to be a lot of, are you all right? I'm fine. What's wrong? Nothing.
Yes.
There's a lot of that going to be going
marriage.
on.
You're going to have a fine marriage if you understand that's how it works. But I thought that was extraordinary. Now, again, lots of people say, oh, well, most people can't afford private healthcare. Yes, of course they can. Absolutely. Look, my view is the only answer he should have given there was, under a Labour government, under my premiership, no one will need to go to the private sector to get to get healthcare to keep them alive. That would have been the correct answer. That's what he should have said, and he didn't say that. I thought the honesty from Rishi Sunak. I think most people would. I know people who are on well below average incomes who have paid for like a consultant appointment. Again, they never should have had to. I think it's obscene they've done so, but they're just like, we have got to get this information. We've got to get ahead. And yet they are by no. I mean, people who've taken it out of their life savings. People do that.
Yeah.
And by the way, if it was your kid, you'd sell your home. If your kid had some rare cancer and you had to go and fly them to America for some treatment that cost 250k, can you tell me there's anyone listening or watching right now who wouldn't go, sell the house, we're going?
Well, there's so many people do, and this is another thing, of course, is that very often the legal system in this country, the NHS, prevents people from doing that, from taking their ill children abroad.
Well, they shouldn't have to do
and
it.
I have to say, it's a sign, I think, either of a dishonest person, which, okay, politician, fine, but, you know, the other thing is so ideologically wedded to a healthcare system
Put my politics before my life.
That you'd risk your wife or your children.
Yeah.
Oh, I find that incredibly disconcerting, very worrying. I cannot, and I also don't think that most people would actually look at, the question was if you could.
Yeah.
So not, you know, will you, if you have the money. Hypothetically, it's an easy thing to say,
if Starmer's wife had penis cancer, which apparently it's perfectly possible for her as a woman to... Is there such testicular cancer?
Testicular cancer, yes. I want to get that.
I'm not seeing, but testicular cancer. You know what I mean?
Lord.
I'm not trying to make light of you know, things like this, but I'm just saying, you know, in his topsy-turvy world, I thought that was an extraordinary exchange. Let's also just have one final clip. This was a question from an audience member straight out of Central Casting. You looked at her and you thought, I know you're going to ask about climate change. And she did. Let's have a listen to this.
The world is facing a climate catastrophe now. Both of you have broken promises on the environment. What are you doing to put climate at the very centre of your policies?
And of course, we're going to tackle climate change and get to net zero. This election is about how we do it. And I don't think that British people should solve a global problem all by themselves, which is why I'm also prioritising our country's energy security and your bills. We've heard a lot about the cost of living challenges today. So I have made some decisions, bold decisions, that will mean that we can save all of you thousands of pounds, still meet our targets, and we can ensure our country's energy security.
This is really important. A transition is coming that's very important when it comes, for example, to energy, a transition to renewables. I don't think we should just see that as a challenge. It's a huge opportunity, because if we go to renewable energy, that means cheaper bills. Renewables are cheaper, not just for the short term, but for the long term.
First point of interest, there isn't a climate catastrophe. Again, that's not something. I mean, Julia Hartley-Brewer from ITV, she was very much pushing that. Of course, the very important issue of, you know, climate change. I mean, the thing is, this annoyed me with Starmer. With Sunak on this one, because Sunak was basically saying, "Oh, Starmer's going to cost you a fortune with his policy. We've got the sensible policy." They just pushed their policies back 5 years. Both parties are fully signed up to insane policies that will make us poorer, make us energy insecure, and make us damage to our defence and security by our ability to actually protect ourselves in the event of war with their net zero policies.
They are. And
they're both as bad as each other.
The problem is actually in the framing of the question. Oh, it's about the climate catastrophe. And you notice they both immediately pivoted to energy, because they understand that's actually what's important, but they can't say it sort of explicitly. They can't say, look, forget about this, you know, this line you've decided to go down, energy security. And you can have clean energy as part of that, absolutely. You know, nuclear power is very clean. I know it's a surprise to many people to hear that it doesn't make you grow an extra head and start glowing yellow. But actually there is a route. If you want, you know, uber sort of clean energy, you can have it, and it's also very secure. Nobody's prepared to sort of touch it through that prism, because, again, everything has to be through the prism of what are you going to do about the weather?
But by the, we'd love a bit of climate change this summer, please, from what the Met Office is predicting. But again, also nuclear power isn't going to actually drive all our cars and make factories work either. I did think, interesting, the first question last night was from a woman called Paula, and talking about cost of living. Now, there's no doubt at all, 100% there is a cost of living crisis. People are still living with it, even with inflation going down. We are looking at, you know, no less people living with the last 2 years of inflationary rises. But I always find it fascinating, and it's the same as when the BBC interviews somebody who has to go to a food bank. And whenever they interview someone who's going to a food bank, so they can't put food on the table, I'm sorry, without exception, it's always a woman who's got arms wider than my thighs, big, fat, I'm sorry, massive woman going, I'm having to miss meals to feed my kids. And I'm looking, thinking, This is not necessarily a bad thing.
This is an unfair judgment. You work out a lot.
I do. I actually have very muscly arms, I would say. But yeah, and last night, and again, Paula, no offence to Paula, but Paula was saying how about she can't, she has to batch cook food because they can't afford enough food. And I'm looking at her thinking, you look like someone who can afford enough food to me, with no disrespect, Paula, but I find it bizarre the number of people who are clearly overweight. If you look at people who are genuinely poor and can't afford food, what are the indicators? Is people not being overweight?
It's a strange thing, of course. 100 years ago, the problem with the poor was that they were all desperately underweight, and all the upper echelons of society were the ones dying of heart attacks and diabetes. We managed to get... Yes, does anybody remember gout? My father has gout. But apart from that... I just have to get that dig in.
Can we all just agree right now that if we thought there was anyone in this country who would have gout, it would be either a relative of Henry VIII or a descendant of Henry VIII or Benedict Spence's father.
I mean, I'm laughing at it now, but it's coming for me. But this is the thing. Do you know? Again, though, it's about the prison of which we talk to. It's about what can the state do for you. It's never about how do we create the wealth to ensure that people can stand on their own feet. It's what's about me. What about me? What are you going to do for me? And it's completely the wrong attitude to take. And again, I go back to the climate crisis. That line that they take all the time. This is the wrong way to look at it. If you want to achieve your goals, you can do that. But the process of doing it is about creating wealth, because wealth is what drives. It's what drives food plenty. It's what drives new technologies. It's about what will lead to new cars that are uber environmentally clean. That's what you need to go to. But this government never focuses on growth, on actual wealth. It just focuses on keeping things as much in stasis as they currently are. And by definition, that means things decay and get worse because we aren't keeping pace with the rest of the world.
Exactly. It really is true, isn't it?